there! Are you ready to make this year the best year of your life? Are you going to get off the couch, throw out those Christmas cookies, join the gym, and get that heart beating? Well, what are you waiting for? I bet you're at the gym right now, about to step on the machine we'll be talking about in this episode. Get ready to learn how you're about to use a machine that went from its beginnings as a human-powered heavy lifter to a form of prison punishment to becoming the most popular piece of cardiovascular exercise machinery. I'm your host, Emily Prokop, and this is the story behind The Treadmill. But first, a quick message. If you like this podcast, you may be interested in other podcasts that focus on the humanities. In fact, if you search Twitter for the hashtag #Humanities_podcast, you'll find plenty of shows on history, language, literature, philosophy, art, and more. These podcasts are by people who enjoy telling stories, exploring the arts in our world, and who want to share that knowledge. Some examples of podcasts you'll find are The Endless Knot, an in-depth podcast featuring history, etymology, and all-around fun facts about a different topic every episode. The Story Behind, a short narrative podcast featuring the extraordinary history of ordinary objects, people, or places. Or the Archaeology Podcast Network, which features a variety of podcasts focusing on archaeology. Search hashtag #Humanities_podcast today, or follow Humanities Podcasters on Twitter. And if you're a Humanities Podcaster, use the hashtag in your tweets so others can find you. When you think about the actual purpose of a treadmill, it's easy to see why some European countries would scoff at the idea of a stationary sidewalk. But the idea for the treadmill began in the late 1st century in Rome, when a treadmill was introduced as sort of a human-powered crane to lift heavy objects. Romans would actually walk within a large diameter of a wheel, kind of like a human hamster wheel. As funny as that sounds, they were able to lift more weight with fewer crew members using this system. Using a treadmill for power continued to be a common occurrence through the centuries. In fact, the term horsepower comes from the measurement of strength of a horse needed to operate a treadmill or similar stationary machine as a source of power for farms in the 1800s. In 1818, a British engineer by the name of Sir William Cubitt invented the prison treadmill, also known as the tread wheel. This was exactly what it sounds like. Convicts were made to step on spokes of a large paddle wheel to generate power for tasks such as grinding corn and pumping water. However, there were reports of prisons using treadmills as a form of punishment rather than producing any sort of power. Use of the treadmill for prisoners was finally deemed too cruel in England when the Prisons Act of 1889 abolished hard labor for convicts. You would think that would be the end of treadmills, but it was only a matter of time until the treadmill made a reappearance in the form of exercise equipment. A prisoner from back then would probably be shocked to see people paying $20 a month just to use the machine nowadays. The treadmill wasn't quite ready to make the leap to recreational exercise equipment in 1952, but it did become a part of the medical community when Dr. Robert Bruce and his colleague Wayne Quinton used a treadmill as a way to monitor heart conditions and diseases. He developed the Bruce Protocol diagnostic test, which is still used to evaluate cardiac function today, and he's known as the father of exercise cardiology. When you hear the word aerobics, you may get the mental picture of Olivia Newton-John or Jane Fonda in spandex and leg warmers from the 80s, but that wasn't the beginning of the aerobics craze. Dr. Kenneth H. Cooper developed aerobics at an Air Force hospital in the 1960s, with the intention of preventing coronary artery sickness for those in the military. But it took off as a fun way to stay in shape. With his aerobics, Cooper began popularizing the treadmill, but he would also go on to popularize the treadmill as a test of cardiovascular fitness, otherwise known as the treadmill stress test. If you've ever seen a television show in which someone is having their physical fitness tested by having monitors attached while being asked to run on the treadmill, you're most likely seeing Cooper's method. By the way, Cooper is also behind the idea of running for fun, which I'll never understand. It seems every year new exercise equipment is being introduced to the fitness scene. But treadmills continue to be the #1 selling cardiovascular exercise machine. Go to any gym, especially this time of year, to see just how popular these machines are. Regardless of infomercials promising us a better, more efficient way to get fit time and again, walking is one of the easiest ways to incorporate movement into our routines. And I'll admit I'm perfectly happy derping on my phone while walking mindlessly on the treadmill at the gym. In fact, I'm totally one of the schmucks paying $20 a month just to walk. Sure, I could use some of the other machines, but really, walking is so easy, and honestly, some of the other machines kind of scare me. Another reason treadmills are so popular, as opposed to just going outside and taking a walk, is because of the wonderful technology known as climate control. Instead of trudging in the snow or melting in the heat of summer, you can walk as long as you want indoors on a treadmill without worrying about slipping on ice or getting a sunburn. Plus, you're never far from where you started if you decide to take a walk on a treadmill. Information for this episode was sourced from lifefitness.com, physicalculturestudy.com, cooperaerobics.com, Mental Floss, PBS, and more links, which can be found in the show notes at thestorybehindpodcast.com. Follow on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at StoryBehindPod, or subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you'll never miss an episode. Thanks for listening.